The investigation of Parliament came in the wake of a 2019 corruption perception survey which cited Parliament as one of the most corrupt institutions in the country. This allegation was also re-echoed by controversial lawmaker Ibrahim Tawakonte, who accused the clerk Parantawali and other administrative officials and MPs of misappropriation. The ACC, following investigations, concluded that there is a serious lack of monitoring process and accountability from the Parliament and would work with Parliament to implement a policy review and to give clear guidelines and directives on financial policies. In response, the Parliament of Sierra Leone issued a press release assuring the general public that they will fully cooperate with the findings and recommendations of the ACC to improve and strengthen prudent fiscal management and promote accountability and transparency in the management of its finances. Now, while the ACC agrees that there are issues of mismanagement, the anti-graft body has not followed through with any prosecution, a decision which has raised debate. Honorable Ibrahim Tawakonte has accused the ACC of showing a lack of fortitude in leading the fight against graft and cherry-picking with cases to prosecute. Tonight we discuss this ACC report on Parliament and the argument put forward by Honorable Ibrahim Tawakonte. My name is Samuel Wise-Bangura and this is AYV on Sunday. All right, good evening and a very warm welcome to AYV on Sunday on Channel 33 on TV and on Radio 101.7 FM. On my panel this evening, I have with me Melvin Tijan Mansare, who is the country representative for parliamentary. What's the title, Melvin? Thank you for correcting me and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right, I have the Honorable Ibrahim Tawakonte for representing constituency 132 in Freetown. Good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Samuel. Good evening, Sierra Leoneans. Good evening, viewers.
All right, we shall be joined in the studio by the Director of Public Education and Outreach at the Anti-Corruption Commission, Patrick Sandy, and the Executive Director for Legal Link, lawyer Rashid Dumbuya. When they come, they will join the conversation. But let's start off. So you watching and listening, remember you can always participate in the discussion through our Facebook page. You can find us at the Africa Young Voices Media Empire Facebook page. Africa Young Voices Media Empire Facebook page. And alternatively, you can phone in and make your contributions when I announce the call line later. But now just drop your comments on the Africa Young Voices Media Empire Facebook page and be part of the conversation. Honorable Ibrahim Tawakonte, I'm going to start off with you. You brought to the attention of the ACC issues of corruption with regards the administration of Parliament, and the ACC has investigated. The ACC has come out with its findings and conclusion that yes, there are issues of corruption. There are issues of procurement malpractices. In a case, Parliament did not request for quotation and interest could not be accounted for. Those things are there, but they did not meet the evidential threshold for prosecution. When those findings were published, what first came to mind?
Thank you very much, Samuel. I have watched you introduce the program this evening, and I heard you say clearly that the Honorable Ibrahim Tawakonte has followed up on maybe the 2019 perception survey. But before that survey and before even a statement from the Honorable Ibrahim Tawakonte,
right, let
me lay a context for this discussion on Parliament and parliamentary history on corruption.
Go ahead.
It was not first made by the Honorable Ibrahim Tawakonte. It was well documented, detailed, clearly inscribed in the SLPP manifesto. The manifesto that I believed in, the manifesto that brought us to governance, and it was clear about parliamentary functions and parliamentary complacency in aiding and abating corruption in Sierra Leone. these were some of the comments. Let me just read them quickly. On page 57, it says at the core is the absence of political will, reflected in the inability of Parliament to scrutinize the public account audit submitted to it by the Audit Service Sierra Leone. It went further to state that Parliament oversight is completely moribund, entrenching a culture of impunity for corrupt practice. That is not me.
Right. That
was the SFP manifesto. On page 58 and 59, the manifesto also spoke to this issue. It said to ensure full implementation of all, it said in the fight against corruption, it will leave no stone unturned. In that regard, however, the new direction promised to ensure full implementation of all audit recommendations in annual audits of the Audit Service Sierra Leone and of ministries, departments, and agencies. And on page 62, it states that weak expenditure management, poor accountability, and ineffective parliamentary oversight. For example, the report of the Auditor General and Anti-Corruption Commission, amongst many others, have hardly been acted upon. So even before the Honorable Tawa coming to Parliament, there was this glowing analysis on parliamentary inability to perform and to execute their function. And coupled with that, when I got to Parliament and when I was sworn in on the 25th of April 2018, I realized that there are things that are almost unspoken. There are issues that people, they are not to talk about. There are things that are actually affecting the very fabric of statehood. There are things that are actually affecting the very fundamental functions for which Parliament is deemed to be in existence. And I realized that if all of us decide to keep quiet on those issues, then why are we here? Why are we being paid? We are being paid for nothing. So in the end, I realized that somebody has to reposition Parliament by ensuring that the general public understand exactly what is happening in Parliament. Now, coming to the question, what was my reaction and what was my feeling when the ACC put out their findings? It was one that actually took me aback. It was one that threw cold, icy water on the effort of people that actually determined to push the fight against corruption. It is one that actually sends the signal that there are people that are treated separately, or people that are sacred cows, or people in whose domain, if there is corruption or if there are corrupt practices, it can be investigated, but no action can be taken. It was clear that the ACC said in all of their analysis, starting from constituency development fund, to parliamentary oversight, to procurement, to leadership interest, to general interest, they said clearly that yes, there are anomalies, there are systemic failures, and the word corruption, it cannot be corrupt if the system is working. It cannot be corrupt if they are procedural, you follow the procedures and you abide to the law, or abide with the law and processes that guide a particular activity. But in this instance, the ACC was clear that, Parliament did not follow procedures. Parliament flouted Section 37 of the Public Procurement Act. Parliament flouted Section 44 of the Public Procurement Act. Parliament received full interest in fact, Parliament received in excess of the interest of the allocated budget to Parliament for 2019. The allocated budget was 24 billion, 24 point something billion. When you come to the figures, I will give you the figures.
Right.
The figure for 2018 was 23 billion. According to the ACC audits, that was 526 million less of meeting the full 100% of the budget allocation for 2018. And of all the functions that Parliament performs, there is none that is more important. Like I was told in reading The African Child, he said, of all the work my father did, he said, none fascinated me so much like the smelting of gold. Of all the work that Parliament did, of all the work that Parliament is meant to do, there is none that is more sacred and more important than parliamentary oversight. If you go to the parliamentary budget, you look at the estimates, you will realize that of all the lines, it is oversight that has the highest number of lines and sublines. You would have taken parliament to the people, scrutinizing MDs, monitoring budget execution, a whole lot of lines with monies allocated for it.
Right.
But the ACC was bold enough to come out and say, okay, in all of these lines, yes, the Ministry of Finance allocated full amount to Parliament, but there is no specific allocation for oversight activity. What are you saying? The Constitution says in Section 93 that Parliament has an oversight function. Three functions to be performed by Parliaments: oversight, lawmaking, and representation. And of these three, oversight is interrelated to the other two. If you don't perform effective oversight, you cannot make a good laws. In fact, I cannot remember the exact section, whether it's subsection 6 of 93, that says that the work of an oversight committee should inform legislation. That is to say, the work of oversight is speaking directly to the third function of parliamentary duties, that is lawmaking. And equally, you cannot represent your people if you don't examine the ministries, departments, and agencies for which government money, taxpayers' money, the ordinary people's money are allocated to for the use and for the carrying out of government functions. So if the ACC comes out with such a statement, surely it hits me to the bone, and it's something that I feel the ACC has gone wrong, especially in the fight against corruption, by sending a message that, yes, there are people that can do A, B, C, and D, but we find ways for which we can say it does not meet the evidential threshold as per the law.
Let me ask you this political question, just out of curiosity. You've just cited the SLPP manifesto, the New Direction manifesto, and there are references there that speak to how determined the party is to fight corruption, and how parliamentary processes and proceedings have gone wrong for far too long. And so the SLPP is determined to correct those things. Now the SLPP is in power, and the leadership of that very parliament is made up of members of the SLPP. How do you see the leadership's efforts in combating corruption?
Collaboratively, if you look at the efforts of the leadership, if you look at the press release that was put out by Parliament, you will realize that it was the best mistake that Parliament has ever made in the entire fifth Parliament, in the lifetime of the fifth Parliament. They accepted clearly that, yes, they have taken the recommendation of the anti-corruption into their strides, and they are working. They cited several parliamentary service commission meetings in Poloko, Makeni, where they are trying to fix these anomalies. And these anomalies, it is the anomalies, it's the breach of laws, it is the failure. Thank God the lawyer is here. If somebody is charged to court and that person is found guilty, not because the person is not my friend, because the person has breached a law. And Parliament is saying, yes, we have breached a law. The ACC has established this, but we are coming out with a statement. And that statement says, mistakenly, that it is the effort, it is the work of the fourth Parliament, failing to take into cognizance sub-regulation 3 of Regulation 119 of the Public Financial Management Regulation of 2018, statutory instrument number 56, which is, can I read it?
Go ahead, please.
So my brother in Parliament, my brother from Parliament, our parliamentary gallery, would actually understand the basis for which Parliament has made the biggest blunder in their lifetime.
And this is the Parliament you belong to.
That's the Parliament all of us belong to.
So the show is AYV on Sunday, whilst Honorable Ibrahim Tawa is searching for the exact provision to read from.
It says, for any change in an interest holder, it says the handing over. It says the handing over and taking over interest holder shall A, prepare a statement of account on the interest, which shall A1, show how the interest is made up at the time of handing over, and B, signed by both the handing over and taking over interest holder. And paragraph B says, submit a copy of the signed statement to the Accountant General. And 4, it says, an interest holder shall be personally responsible for loss or shortage of the interest fund under his control, and such loss or shortage shall be recovered from the salary of or other emolument or any amount due to the office of the recovered as civil debts to the state. Now, if you go to the parliamentary statement, yeah,
which according to it's a clear acceptance.
It's a clear
but
acceptance
blaming it as an they inherited that.
Yes, they said they said what's the statement? Okay, a yarn in gap that it had inherited from the first parliament.
Right.
And if you say inherited from the first parliament, and the law is saying there is an handing over process. So if there are any anomalies, and let's set the context here, let people understand out there that the former clerk, the late former clerk of the fourth parliament, did not only hand over to the current clerk, he handed over and he stayed for 18 months as a consultant to parliament. And in that 18 months, the 2018 budget was not implemented properly. The monies meant for oversight, two lines amounting to 1,057 million. No oversight was done. The ACC said it in their press statements. Yeah, and in 2019, there were about 5 oversight lines, totaling 1.6 billion. There was no oversight done. So in totality, Parliament is saying we have accepted what ACC said, or the findings of the ACC, that yes, Parliament has systemic problem. Parliament that is making the law is not abiding by the law. Parliament that should be the gatekeeper of their laws. Part of the responsibility of Parliament, lawmaking. Those laws that they make, they don't honor them. But in the end, as they breach those laws, the ACC say, we as ACC, we cannot pursue them because they are meant to breach to breach these laws. So we are saying the SLPP as a party,
right?
Me seated here, I'm a member of the SLPP as well. Don't forget that.
Right.
And I'm in Parliament representing the SLPP in constituency 132, representing the people of constituency 132, which means somebody in the SLPP believes in the vision, direction, and statement and commitment of the president. And that person is speaking out. If others refuse to follow, it does not stop anybody in the SLPP to come out and say, we stand by the president. And standing by the president simply means we have to fight and we have to stop sacred cowism. Because these were part of the wordings that were properly and diligently crafted by somebody who is part of this 5th parliament and was a member of that manifesto committee. Yeah? They are diligently crafted to suit the desire of the voters, and the voters have voted us in. So I, Ibrahim Tawa Conte, Honorable Member of Parliament representing constituency 132 of the SLPP, believed in those words, believed in those commitments, and I am pushing. So you cannot say the SLPP does not believe in the fight. But there are people that believe that it is the way of life.
Yeah, I asked about the leadership of Parliament.
It is hear no evil and see no evil, but there is somebody that is seeing evil and there is somebody that is hearing those evil, and let other people understand those evil.
Right. Still with, continue to stay with me. Let me introduce the Executive Director for Legal Link, lawyer Rashid Dumbuya. Welcome to the conversation.
Thanks for having me. I'm grateful.
Right. And also quickly just want to introduce the public education, the Director of Public Education and Outreach at the Anti-Corruption Commission, Patrick Sandy. Good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening, my brother. Thank you for having me.
All right, let me now bring in the country representative for Parliamentary News Africa. I mean, you've been in the well of Parliament. I'm sure you'll be referred to now as the Honorable Melvin Tijarma Ansari, representing constituency 000. But let's go. I mean, let's look at how parliamentary processes, especially when you take a look at the issues of accountability and transparency and corruption in Parliament. How has it pan out, especially with you being an integral component in all of the processes in Parliament, reporting on them?
Well, it has been an interesting one. I think, like Honorable Tawa started, I would preface my interventions on the Constitution because Parliament itself is a creature of the Constitution, and I would like to deliberately start with, if you'll permit me, section number 73 and section number, okay, let me just give it an open. It clearly talks about the responsibilities of members of Parliament, and among those responsibilities, let me just land, and it clearly states that parliamentarians must conduct themselves ethically.
Right.
They must not seek to enrich themselves outside the confines of the law. So for me, firstly, we must set the context. From the ACC side of things, they never just investigated the administration of Parliament. They also investigate members of Parliament on issues around oversight, sitting fees, constituency development fund, and several other ones. and it's interesting to listen to the Honorable Tawa being very specific on procurement issues, which I think generally is one serious issue affecting the administration of Parliament. There are several complex issues to be discussed here, but let me just take them since the Honorable Tawa started on that note. He spoke about the SLPP manifesto and what it talks about Parliament then and what is happening now. From what he said, it is clear that there is inconsistency, there is no sincerity. And he also made another interesting, but I'll call it political statement, that the president promised reforms and he believes in the vision of the president. And for me, that is very, very ironical.
In what sense?
In the sense that amidst all of these ravaging corruption allegations, Mr. President has remained silent. And guess what? Mr. President is a ceremonial member of Parliament. And guess what again? There is a ministry that is responsible for political affairs. It was once called the Political and Parliamentary Affairs. All of these arms of government, what have they been doing with regards to these issues? So for me, I think looking at the issues from the real lens will help us shape the conversation. One, from the parliamentary aspect, accountability, financial and management of the parliament itself, the administration.
Right.
That's where many people like us have been saying, for the fact that we have a politically energized or active clerk, that in itself creates room for ambiguities or malpractices within the parliament.
How?
In fact, in international best practices, there are laws. Advanced countries are making laws that protects the clerk's office from undue political influence. But here in Sierra Leone, it's the total reverse. The office is influenced and operated by active politicians. Once that is the case, it becomes very serious to administer parliament separately from the political arm. What we are having now in the current parliament...
So there's always going to be that clash between the administrative and the political wings of parliament when a politician occupies
That's the trend we've seen. And that is a fundamental problem that started since the last administration. And it is continuing. And we are talking about a new direction. So moving forward, I think the broader issues are the people are concerned about how, Parliament as an administration, yes, they administer the businesses of Honorable Tawa, but how Honorable Tawa themselves have conducted themselves with regards to financial accountability as to what is provided for them.
Right.
Again, if you look at Honorable Tawa's claim, he is saying that, oh, we never performed oversight. But guess what? Between Honorable Tawa, the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Ministry of Finance, who is to be trusted? ACC is saying otherwise. Honorable Tawa is saying otherwise. And the Ministry of Finance is telling ACC is just going by what the Ministry of Finance said, oh, we never allocated for that. So in this case, who is to be trusted? Honorable Tawa, the ACC, or the Ministry of Finance?
I want to ask you, over the years you've reported on the proceedings or businesses of Parliament. Does Parliament receive a bulk sum of its budget? And in that budget, for them, that is where they have to get via oversight allocation and things like that? Or are they being separated when they make requests for
Honorable Tawa is the best person to answer that. But with regards to the ACC findings,
right,
we know for Constituency Facilitation Fund or Development Fund, there is a name change. And after that name change, I am reliably informed by members of Parliament themselves that per quarter they are getting 18 million. Honorable Tawa stand to correct me here. Correct. And if they've received that money since 2019 and 2020, and the ACC is saying that members of Parliament have not been reporting on that, I think that is those are the serious issues that we should be addressing. You cannot blame this Parliament, and that's why I hold a divergent view on saying that these MPs should pay back. If you want these MPs to pay back, then it will be predicated on the question, on what grounds, on what rules, on what standard operating procedures.
So why shouldn't this Parliament be blamed?
Because this has been something that has been perpetual.
But that is why they said, it's a new system being ushered in to change that narrative, correct?
Of course, and the new system is already representing the old. So in this case, if they are to pay back, then one will argue that all those previous members of Parliament who operated under the no system of accountability, they must also pay back. So for me, I think moving forward, we must have the systems to hold members of Parliament and the administration accountable. And
so
for
you're
now,
saying because,
that is
because we cannot go back, let them go scot-free.
I am
let
not
that people go. What are you saying?
I am not saying because there is no substantial ground to hold them on.
Right.
Except you go to the constitution that says they must not illegally enrich themselves. What are the clear policies? What are the standard operating procedures that you can actually hold members of parliament on? And I think that is a lacuna in the law, and moving forward, legislation should be drafted with regards to some of these little but very important issues that are becoming drainages in the new direction.
Right. Let me bring in Lawyer Rashid. You issued a statement, your institution issued a statement calling on Parliament, the ACC, for example, that the least the ACC could have done in this situation is to ask members of Parliament to pay back, the monies, because they've siphoned monies that were not supposed to be misappropriated, should I put it, because monies were meant for specific things, but those monies did not go to the things assigned for. So let's get to your position.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. I'm really grateful. And I think I come here also with experience, having served as the state prosecutor of the ACC. Let's be clear from day one, the ACC is a relevant institution. We need ACC in the country. So despite the challenges, we cannot afford to be in Sierra Leone without an ACC. They've been doing a lot of work, and yes, it is true, they're not perfect, but they have been trying.
Right.
So the option of fighting the ACC not to exist, we should not even go there. But then what we are doing at the moment, and what perhaps I'm sure this discussion about, is to help perhaps to better our ACC, and also to help our president succeed in his mandate in fighting corruption in Sierra Leone. Right. So I'm proud to be here today, and I'm happy. Now let me give the background. First of all, my organization, Legal Link, commend the ACC for this this unique and novelty. I can remember when I was there, we tried to investigate Parliament at some point, but I'm not sure we even went too far. And then
You were stopped?
No, well, I think the person who made the allegation, that Parliament was corrupt, it was one, I think a mayor or so.
Yes.
He could not really come up with anything. So we tried, but there was nothing there. So for Kefala to really dare it and go this far, to me, it's a novelty, and we must commend the ACC for that. But then my organization looked at the findings, and we were a little bit curious, because I believe the report was really concrete and clear. And if the findings reveal that monies were misappropriated and could not be accounted for, or there were procurement, procedure issues, then there should be a decision, by the commission.
The commission made a decision.
Yes. So yes, I agree with you, but I am saying the decision ought to have been one that should have invoked a positive action at the very least. So perhaps I could understand the commission not prosecuting, given the public interest, underlying ethics, because these are parliamentarians, they have to work. If you take on them now, it will mean a whole lull in parliamentary activities and legislative activities, which may not be good for our nation, our national interest. So I was not going to see the ACC go that line, but at the very least, nothing was harmful to have required the monies back from them. Because you see, what we are trying to do is to make sure such institution should be an example to the nation. This is an organ of government. We should not even hear such findings in that body. So to me, it was a missed opportunity. As a state prosecutor once, I felt a dent. I sat there and said, oh my God, we missed this one. We could have said something positive so that we leave an indelible footprint that even an organ of government cannot be spared in this fight. That would have given another feather to ACC. And there are so many risks of this inaction. And
what are they?
That was I was very bold to lead my organization to have this engagement with the ACC that to some extent we are disappointed. Because again, don't forget, we have just passed the compact eligibility. The money has not been given. So when we are missing opportunities, we have to be careful not to undermine that goal in a way. Because if this continues consistently, minds might change. And that might undermine even perhaps giving us the bulk sum which we ought to have deserved. So let's keep the consistency and the momentum.
So you feel, the decision by ACC is undermining the efforts, the gains we've made in the fight.
This particular parliamentary, inaction after the decision clearly reveals, and the findings are clear, that monies were misappropriated and could not be accounted for, and also that procurement procedures were not followed. There are precedents in ACC that shows clearly that when this happens in investigation, you must invoke procedural discretion in favor of prosecution or requiring reforms.
And that discretion was exhibited by the Commission in this case.
Yeah, but
we're not going to prosecute.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That is that, and not only that, but not even a request for reform. That is where I'm sure, as a prosecutor, former prosecutor, I am not really happy about that decision. All right, because we missed the opportunity.
Patrick Sandy, so this is the situation, this is the feeling that when it comes to the fight against corruption, the Parliament of Sierra Leone is afraid of certain individuals, certain institutions, so they cherry pick cases to prosecute. And in this particular instance, for example, involving Parliament, you had a very great opportunity, but you said, no, you know what, forget about this opportunity. Those guys are powerful. Let's just find a way to make them happy and keep this going.
That is not the case. The ACC is not trying to make anybody happy. You see, as we always say, and maybe we understand this, my colleagues here, the fight against corruption is a daunting one. And in a situation like this, we are fully aware that the ACC commissioner is a lawyer, and we have a team of lawyers at the ACC prosecutors. And so when decisions are taken, they are taken with a view that we are delivering on our mandate. On the investigations of Parliament, we came out with our findings. And let me just start to respond to the issue of recovery, which my brother here, Rashid, says we could have employed as one alternative to prosecution. What we should also understand when you want to recover is there should be a situation where if the person, for instance, declines to pay, you can equally go to court and you have what it takes to convict that person, though normally the evidence is borderline. So you will say, this is what we have for you, come and pay, because there should be a situation where if the person even says, I am not going to pay, you will go to court. Otherwise, it becomes a backlash. So in a situation like this, when we had looked at all the issues before us, we are still emphasizing, yes, they could not bring in retirements, but again, we still believed that if we were to go to court, what it will take the ACC to convict was not available to us. And equally so, we would not ask for recovery, because I've already told you what it takes for ACC to go in regard the alternative. And we have had an incident at the ACC. Let the public know. Maybe they had not known before. When we conducted investigations on ACID, we were going to charge to court, but also there was this option of recovery from the former Director General of NACID, John Sedumans. It was put to him and a few others. They said, no, we're not going to pay, let's go to court. And today we are in court. So ACC is also mindful of that. You would see recovery as an easy path to go, but it is not, because the person also would have to pay out of his or her volition. But if the person says no, then we proceed to court. So that is also an aspect we have to take into consideration. And of course, on the other areas of there was misappropriation and things like that, we are still saying it's a difficult thing. And I like the point he made, of course, regarding retirement of funds, for instance, on the leadership in place. Somebody could equally say, well, why not take them to court? But I tell you, it will be reckless on the part of anybody. So, for instance, say you charge Cherry Coco, Kanda Yunkela, Matinyuma. For what reason? Is it the sensation you want?
So what happens when even Parliament...
And we look at it also, charging is one thing, but also on which basis? Because this is these are monies that they have been receiving. My brother here is making a good point, but sometimes we don't understand. Yes? Somebody would say the fact that the parliament now is saying they inherited it.
Right.
So it is a question of them not to continue or will not stand as a justification. But then what I'm saying, that is why that is where we should now appreciate the intervention of the ACC into parliament at this stage. Yes, it has been happening, but this is now the most appropriate time or the opportunity that we may not let go.
Let me put it this way.
These issues could be addressed.
Let me put it this way. Parliament has come out in what many people have described to acceptance from Parliament that yes, we agree, we've been involved in acts of corruption. Yes, we've not been retiring funds. Yes, there are issues of procurement violations and things like that. They've accepted, and they also said, oh, well, we've been making efforts to ensure that we improve and strengthen our financial policies and practices, so we fully accept the findings from the ACC. But the fact that Parliament, the 5th Parliament, inherited the issue of unaccountability from the 4th Parliament, and that should be a justification for them to go off the hook. Should we say if the Minister of Energy today, met his predecessor not accounting for funds received, and now he came, the one I'll be meeting not be the account, he should be let go off the hook as well because of Parliament?
No, that's not. That is
what
not,
are you saying?
That's what I'm saying in this situation is they received the funds.
Right.
And they said, well, we never knew we were to retire.
And is that not unfortunate? And that Parliament is saying they never knew that they were to retire to give account of funds they were receiving.
But you see, you will find it interesting. but to me, I will take it seriously.
Right.
Honestly, Samuel, because in certain offices people go. I am not defending them.
Go ahead.
But most of the things you may want to do will be based on precedence. It's not, of course, a bad precedence. Certain decisions you want to take, you will say, well, the previous commissioner, for instance, was here. What was the stake on it? If it is something that is coming anew, you may want people to come and discuss or decide on it like management. So that is where, again, you may want to reason a bit.
Right.
But as I am saying, the ACC's position is really with a view for us to see how we can work with Parliament and try to strengthen and deepen accountability within that very good institution. As my brother also referred to, is an organ of government, and I believe they are a very serious pillar of integrity that should be the beacon of transparency and accountability. So if those things by our investigations have not been able to come forth, let us see what next steps will be taken in regard a systems review with a view of coming with recommendations and see if those recommendations will be followed. Right.
Honorable Ibrahim Conte, you belong to that powerful House of Parliament. You are the ones who appropriate budget to MDAs. When the budget is presented by the Ministry of Finance, you have to go through it, look at it, and ensure that people comply, institutions comply with the laws and the issues of accountability, which is why you have so many acts that speak to compliance with accountability, with procurement and all of that. And you have, for lack of word, you have the power to tell the ACC that you do not know you should retire. You should give account of monies you're receiving. You do not know that as a parliament.
Who said so? The good thing is I have had few comments from my brother, very respected journalist.
Right.
I respect him. I hold him in high esteem. He's a very good researcher. He understands parliament and parliamentary proceedings. I've heard his comments. I've had my brother, Lawyer Rashid, a very renowned and respected lawyer, make some comments on the issue of constituency development fund and reform. But let me come to, before I come to that, let me take you to the issue of retirement.
Right.
The law is clear. You know, sometimes I go to programs, I don't bother take the law along, but today it is but wise that it is one-off opportunity so that the public understands that exactly there is a law, and in that law, it gives power to the minister to come out with regulations, and those regulations in compliance with subsection 7 of section 170 of the Constitution of Sierra Leone they are laid on the table of Parliament, and they are there for 21 days, matured, and they turn law. So what does it say? What does the regulation say? The regulation of 2018, Public Financial Management Regulation, a creature of the Public Financial Management Act. Section 124, it says retirement of an interest fund.
And you enacted this law?
This law was laid on the table of the 5th Parliament of the Second Republic, and it matures into law in line with or pursuant to subsection 7 of section 170.
Go ahead.
Yeah. It says all standing and special interest fund shall be fully retired at the end of a financial year, and any remaining balance shall be refunded to the consolidated fund by January 31st of the following financial year. Then sub-regulation 2 of regulation 124. It says when failing to retire and refund an interest fund under sub-regulation 1, the amount failed to be retired and refunded shall be deducted from the salary of the interest holder. Sub-regulation 3. It says sub-regulation 2 shall not relieve the interest holder from liability to criminal proceedings in the case of misappropriation. Who is the interest holder? The interest holder is the vote controller. Who is the vote controller of Parliament? The vote controller is the clerk. So we are saying if the vote controller, who was a member of the 4th Parliament that passed the Public Financial Management Act into law, and the Public Financial Management Act, the regulation is a creature of that act, is saying, I don't know that I should ask members of Parliament to bring in retirement vouchers to attach to funds allocated to them. Then it shows that somebody is not in the right state to occupy a particular seat. That's one. Number 2, the issue of asking members of Parliament to retire. Let's first of all set the context. What are they retiring for? Are they retiring their constituency development fund? Or are they in line with the misleading investigation done by the ACC regarding the constituency development fund that actually preferred to rely on the statement made by the Speaker that the monies disbursed to us, allocated to us by this budget. The budget was passed on the 13th of July 2018, and in that budget, it says Constituency Development Fund. And sub-regulation 2 of regulation 9 of this regulation, it says nobody can change the account code except the financial secretary, the accountant general, together with the financial secretary. And now, money given to me under that law, yeah, that was disbursed into my accounts in November of 2018, on the 2nd of November, 69,186,000 or so. You are telling me that I should build an office. Why should I build an office? I will not build an office. The money was given to me as Constituency Development Fund. My account
to develop your constituency, is that what you're saying?
This is the account. The account was credited as such. You can look at it. This is the account. The account was credited as such. What's the narration? The pink.
Honorable Ibrahim Tawakonte. Check withdrawal.
No, look at the pink. The pink highlight.
The pink highlight is
yes, sir. The pink highlight is saying, okay, the green CDF.
Constituency
members of
Development
Parliament.
For to members of Parliament.
Okay.
69,178,000.
And you read the other green highlights here. This is the budget. What does it say?
Constituency Development Fund, CDF.
What does the Bible say? I'm a Muslim, by the way. The Bible says in the book of Samuel, when God asked King Saul to go to Amalek and destroy the entire Amalek, the people of Amalek, his soldiers, it was not Saul, it was his soldiers that spared King Agag and some of the bounties of war. What did God say? He said it is better to obey than to sacrifice.
So what are you saying?
So Saul was removed as king of Israel because he did not follow the law. So what am I saying?
Right.
I will not follow a mere statement by the Speaker that, okay, go and build an office. I would use it for constituency development. And in the course of the investigation, the ACC in the outcome did not say the Honorable Tawa submitted detailed receipts.
Which you did.
I submitted to the ACC. A detailed receipts of every single penny utilized under the amount allocated to me. And as at today, every money given to me as constituency facilitation, though there is no specific description or narration for what facilitation is, whether it's to aid my meetings, or whether it's to facilitate movement of people, or whether it's to facilitate the reduction of hardship in my constituency, but every single penny I use out of that money, I have receipts for it. The receipts are at home. That is one. Even fuel, government gives me fuel, money to buy fuel, even though it comes later. Yeah, it is not paid upfront. That at the beginning of every quarter I'm being given money for my fuel. But every fuel I buy in this country, whether it is up country, where you must give me receipt, even if it's 1 liter. Because I know accountability is key.
So you're saying, in essence, you people in Parliament, you are aware that you should retire.
We are fully aware, and the imprest holder, who is the clerk, who has been a member of Parliament, knows that every imprest must be retired because it is an imprest fund. Yeah, and now my brother also said J.S. Kaifala did not help the ACC then, while he was the state prosecutor, to clean up Parliament. But I have done so. I have given, provided, and supported the ACC right through the course. They could not have investigated leadership imprest had I not given them the lead or submitted information showing that monies were allocated for leadership imprest. So instead of being thanked and being congratulated by the ACC as a whistleblower, the ACC then turned the Honorable Tower into a source of ridicule by mentioning that even the Honorable Tower does not have an office or operate an office in his house. If I operate an office in my house, it's goodwill. It's because I love my people. The money that was given to me was for constituency development. And was there development? I gave them receipts. I gave them pictorial evidence. I submitted everything to the ACC. So it is clear that members of Parliament did not. In fact, the members of Parliament, instead of following the misleading direction of the pronouncement by the Speaker that they should go and rent an office, most of those that utilized it for constituency development fund did the right thing. Right. Because the money was for development. Let me also quickly to 97. My brother said that members of Parliament should not seek to enrich. That's what the Constitution says. That we should not seek to enrich ourselves at the expense of the masses. And if any member of Parliament is found guilty of doing that, why can't you pursue him? For me, I believe we're in service. We must serve. But in the course of doing that, we must also do it diligently. And finally, we asked him whether in his entire parliamentary reporting journey, whether he has knowledge as to the allocation of money to Parliament. Brilliant question. The ACC has. The ACC said it in this report. Yeah? In this report, General Imprest, the ACC says in 2018 and 2019, the sum of 23,871,787,606 loans and 27,407,496,167 loans, respectively, was credited into Parliament Imprest account at the Bank of Sierra Leone by the Accountant General's Department. From the documents received by the Commission and analyzed, it was clear that returns made by Parliament to the AG, to the Accountant General after utilization of such funds show that the monies were expended. This means imprest for both years were expended and appropriate returns were made for same. So if there were returns, it means we have submitted our returns to the vote controller for constituency development for a facilitation fee, and those vouchers in line with Regulation 100, we are submitted to the Accountant General. So we are saying these monies that the ACC said that were credited by the Accountant General to the Parliament account, these are money meant for every activity in the Parliament,
including
budget.
Oversight.
Let me. You can read this.
Just to be certain, including oversight.
Just to be clear, that oversight.
Right.
Oversight in Parliament budget in the activity. Don't forget that Section 112 of the Constitution says what Parliament approves is the estimate, and the estimate is the detailed analysis of the budget. That is to say, line by line activity, and this is the activity line for 2019. First oversight line. So taking Parliament to the people, 218 million euros. He said budget monitoring, preparation and review, 150 million euros. He said sensitization on the passage of bill, 400 million euros. Oversight monitoring activity, oversight monitoring committees visit to MDs, 540 million euros. Monitoring of executive utilization of grant loans by Parliamentary Oversight Committee, 315,978,000. All of these are the components of what is called other charges. That is 14.7 billion or 14.2 billion in the 2 years. And the additional 10 billion, 10.1 billion is what is referred to in the budget as public investment, public investment program, PIP. That is the constituency facilitation or constituency development fund. So if the ACC is saying that these monies were disbursed to Parliament in full and returns were made, but they are also saying that oversight did not happen. If you go to parliamentary oversight now, the ACC,
I'll give you time to respond.
They say we confirm Honorable Ibrahim Tower contest claimed that apart from the above-mentioned activity using the UNICEF fund, no oversight activity was carried out in 2018. And they are saying here that monies were disbursed covering the entirety of all activities for Parliament for the 2 budgetary years. And if those oversights were not done, and those monies were not refunded, thank God the prosecutor is here. Isn't that amount to misappropriation under Section 36?
I'll bring him in, but let me, before they come in. Melvin, I know you've made submission about Parliament and the administrative wing giving statements about them. They've always been retiring funds and things like that. But now they told, according to the ACC, that they never knew that they were supposed to retire, those funds.
Well, that is unfortunate. That is double standards on the part of the administration. But again, let's just be specific. Is it on what impress? The general impress or the leadership?
Leadership impress.
The leadership impress, it's clear from the ACC finding that they are not being retired. But on the general, that Honorable Tawa was talking about, the Parliament has got no case on that. Let's be just realistic here. On the general and other impressed, it's very clear that they've not been retired. In fact, some leaders are not even signing for it. The ACC clearly came out with their findings on that. So for me, I think, again, we are just speaking around the same issues. But the fundamental will remain. ACC will tell you that the frameworks are not there to hold these people culpable. And moving forward, so there is something on the press release that says they are within system processes review. Systems review. But again, we don't even know too much about these departments and what they are doing and what's their terms of reference in the first place. So in fact, that will further confuse people. So I think moving forward, the ACC must come, because that is the solution to this problem. The system has been, like they said, the problem has been systemic. Unfortunately, under a new direction. But we take it as it is. But what's the way forward? I was expecting, this is the second or third week on this one, ACC coming out to tell us the clear pathway, how they intend to engage, what systems, processes review they intend to institute. Because even if you look at the ACC the report itself, it's just a sampling. 81, some 79 MPs are not sampled. So what if the problem is bigger than what even we are thinking about? So the ACC themselves must have a clear time frame and scope of work as to how they intend to reform Parliament. Like everybody here is saying, Parliament for once is accepting that these problems are existing. Unfortunately, they are tempted to shift the blame on the previous. And if the blame game is to be continued, then I don't expect them to be sincere in doing reforms. If we are talking about reforms, we want to see reforms like other people are calling for reforms, like the Honorable Tawa and others, although they themselves are indicted as per the ACC report. I think we should be charting the pathway as to you know that the law is very silent. You yourself have said it, that there is no description to what is constituency development. That in itself is an ambiguity. Moving forward.
Clear description. I did not say so.
It's a constituency facilitation.
I did not say so. You read it. What did you read?
So you yourself said it's not descript as to what exactly is facilitation Okay, you can please clarify.
Constituency development board, and you read it.
Yes.
Okay. So where the law is so ambiguous. Somebody capitalized on the lacuna in the law, and that's what we are exactly seeing. So moving forward, Parliament, now they've said, okay, they welcome, it's good that they are welcoming it, they are not thrashing it, they are not bad-mouthing it like they did to several other. Although the good news again, we are here debating this, the latest Afrobarometer publication does not rank Sierra Leone Parliament among those that are most passive as the most corrupt parliament in 18 countries sampled. So that is something also to put inside the conversation. But moving forward, the ACC is still not too clear as to how they want to institute this reform. Parliament is saying, oh, we are accepting it, but this is not our fault. So moving forward, let's have a clear plan, a pathway as to how are we going to institute those procedures and processes that are now not existing in the current parliament, rather than wasting our time in blaming this.
Do you see the leadership committed to fighting corruption? Because I've spoken to so many members of parliament. Now, I've spoken to the Honorable Kande Yumkela, for example. He feels parliament is aiding and abetting corruption by omission. I've spoken to the Honorable Abdul Kagu. He feels, in fact, by virtue of, parliament is heavily influenced by the executive. So the executive is running that particular organ. Do you see the leadership of parliament actually committed to fighting corruption at any level?
It's hard to determine political willingness, particularly the players that I'm seeing at Tower Hill. you cannot say for certain. Perhaps Honorable Yunkela will be determined. But what if another member in the business committee or the leadership is not willing?
Right.
Let's not forget, this is a place of power play also. Honorable Tawa knows it better. They have their power play interest behind the scenes. It's open that SLPP leaders will not want to see anything on the business paper that is against the interests of the SLPP.
What is against the interest
The
of the
executive.
Or the executive.
Right. Does debating the Auditor General...
No, hold on.
Does debating the Auditor General's report amount to...
Let him land.
So again, you come to the question. So what is holding the leadership of Parliament aback not to include this on the other paper? Now you come to it. What is holding the leadership aback? If it's not only politics. It could not be any other thing but politics. What's the big deal? Honorable Tawa is asking the right question. What's the big deal? The Constitution in Section 1195 clearly says parliamentary debate. But guess what? There's another big loophole in that Constitution. It does not stipulate the process and procedures as to how it should be done. Honorable Tawa is one of the persons that are helping and aiding and abetting the stalling of this debate. Ask me how. He's seated here. There has been this parliamentary traditional practice that the Auditor General report goes to the PAC, after which PAC reports to the plenary. The advent of the Honorable Tawa and others, they believe in innovation and reform. Kudos to them. They are saying this tradition must be changed. And the House has been in what I'll call quagmire ever since as to when and how to debate this. So moving forward, It stands. It's here.
Moving forward, want it to go first to the plenary before PAC.
And some members like Honorable Tawa and Paramount Chief Baiku, the likes of Honorable Laimara, they've been there. They know the procedure, but now they are saying, perhaps let's take this away.
But again, with the efforts to fight, to combat corruption, if it goes through the Public Accounts Committee that is headed by a member of a political party that heads the executive, what would you get out of it?
That is the fundamental error. Best practice, go to Ghana and elsewhere.
Right.
The PAC is headed by the leader of the opposition. In Sierra Leone, it's the reverse. In fact, when they used to have deputy as Honorable Laimara, it was booted out. So you begin to see the power play there is politics. Right. The political willingness is not there. So it's unfortunate for Honorable Tawa to be a campaigner in the fight against corruption, to be seated here and saying, oh, the president, he said he wants to reform, but the president himself is just not saying anything about all of these issues. The president should have come out to say, oh, Honorable, even if not clearly, giving some kind of backing openly to Honorable Tawa, then other members will follow suit. But as it stands, Honorable Tawa is like all alone on his own, and people are saying and they are willing to...
It sits very close to the exit door.
And
but let me...
well, we don't know for now.
Just in a few seconds, do you feel the ACC is afraid of Parliament?
Well, I don't want to indict the ACC here, but I know the ACC has done a thorough job, and in that job they have said Parliament is corrupt, but they have used a portion. You know, I said I believe in the process that it is better to obey than to sacrifice.
Right.
The law says in Section 89 of the Anti-Corruption Act of 2008, it says it is the commissioner that has the prosecutorial power to decide what meets the threshold and what does not meet the threshold. As far as Parliament is concerned, in as much as they have said in this report that Parliament is corrupt, that Parliament is not following procurement procedure, and let's not forget that it is the same violation of procurement procedure that the former procurement director or procurement manager of SLME was charged to court for. It is the same procurement breach that Parliament is not charged for, but it is the ACC. They have the threshold.
The discretion lies with the commission.
It lies with them, so I cannot say they are afraid of Parliament because I don't want them to. I don't want to set them up against Parliament.
No, you'll be the defender. You are the defender here tonight. I know you are the defender here tonight. Let me just begin, Rashid. I'm going to give you enough time to respond. You've listened to the submissions from Melvin and Honorable Ibrahim Tawa. What's they are opening up here is the fact that yes, like the ACC is saying, there is systemic problem in Parliament. Is Parliament willing to accept the change, or they're just making a political statement that, oh, well, we've been working in improving and strengthening these issues, and they agree it's systemic. So it could mean corruption is systemic in Parliament. Issues of unaccountability is systemic in Parliament. Parliament operating in secrecy is also systemic. How do we get those issues out at this point?
Thank you very much. I think the people, what is missing here,
right?
Many parliamentarians are not knowing, is that the people of Sierra Leone are following this debate. And I'm telling you, I'm a civil society activist, they are disappointed.
Right.
And trust me, that will show in the elections coming. People are really disappointed. And let me make it very clear. This man seated here at Tawa, we are proud of him. And I'm sure Sierra Leone is proud of you. The thing you're going through, because you are standing up for the right thing, my brother, you have our back. It's only civil societies that are not true to themselves that will not support you. We are true and genuine, we will support you. And you're on the right thing, and you're on the right track. Do not bow for anything. Sierra Leone is watching and they will reward you. So let me come to the point.
Go ahead.
Melvin, there are frameworks, my brother. The ACC framework on corruption is clear. Parliament is a public body. And these members of parliament are public officers because they are paid from the Consolidated Revenue Fund. So they are bound to account for any money they receive.
But they are not aware according to what they told the ACC.
So ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Right.
All right? Ignorance shall not be known.
But they formulate the laws that speak to...
And it makes that a ridicule, if they can
Go
say
ahead.
that. Because they make the laws. And we all know ignorance is no excuse. So, but again, here is where I'm not happy with my institution. I love this institution so much. But on this exceptional situation, I am so unhappy with them.
Right.
And I've made it very clear to them. I'm working with them currently on many projects. But you see, when we miss the opportunity, so you see now the reactions, assuming if we had come down tough a little, at the very least, to say, hey, no, we expected much from this institution. And we cannot mince our words. If the findings are clear that they could not even account for basic things they receive, also the impressed issues, procurement procedures, these are serious matters. At the very least, something serious should have been done. Not to go and say that systemic. In addition to all this, the systemic will come. But let's see somebody take action. I mean, the responsibility for what they did. All right? At the very least, so that people understand that even Parliament was not spared under this regime. To me, that will have really added a fare to the cap of this government. But this is a missed opportunity. And now, what we are seeing also, the trend we are seeing, and I am so disappointed, is people who are blowing the whistle on corruption. They are the ones now they are the wicked ones in my nation. I don't understand what is happening. I see this to Honorable Tawa. I see this to the Dr. General, who is the biggest whistleblower.
Protected.
Yes. She's been under attack for what? Because she blew the whistle and gave very constructive reports. That's a crime. I also see Africanist press who is just telling us what is happening there. People are hating him for that. What is happening with my country? The other day, Sano went on viral and showed us some things that at the very least we should have said, okay, let's wait and investigate. He said something here. The next moment he's fired. That is undermining the fight. If I know anything now, as Rashid, I'm working for government, I'll be afraid to come out. Because I know the next moment I'll be finished. It's bad for our country's image. At the very least, we should have heard and listened to what he's saying. If there is no sense in it, then we can deal with him. It's a crime, in fact, under the ACC Act. When you blow the whistle to defame others, ACC can maliciously,
right.
It can invoke that act and deal with you. So let's take our time. We should protect them. And that's where I'm going to perhaps come going forward that
right.
I will call for ACC to have a more comprehensive whistleblower legislation. If they don't do it, I will draft one and I will submit it to a private motion bill. So that at the very least, these kind of people are protected comprehensively. All right? They should not be sacked because they blew the whistle on corruption. No way. It undermines the fight and disincentivizes people from coming forth down the line to blow the whistle. Tawa has gone through a lot. Let's be realistic. What is this crime? Because he presided over a committee and tried to ask questions, which was live on by AYP. We saw him. Right. That was his biggest crime. Okay, and then on this one, he went and even gave evidence. I agree at some point, ACC might be correct to say, okay, we also have something perhaps we want to ask you about. So at times, but at the very least in the report, it should come out clear that, and I think it did at some point, that they thank him for whistleblower. I saw it there. Yes. All right, but then let's be clear, we need more protections. Rewards should come after, so that next time, because he risked his life, he risked his family's life, he could have been haunted.
And this is the problem. Even the Honorable Indolo Givao complained of that. Yes. That he felt betrayed even by the ACC. He was not protected at all.
Yeah, so I'm coming there. ACC has provisions on whistleblower, all right, but they're not comprehensive. And I think
the Honorable Indolo Givao did.
Let me correct that situation. In my view, Givao may not necessarily amount to a whistleblower. Right. And I have my reason for that because the people of Sierra Leone, in the civil society report, said Parliament was corrupt, and he just corroborated and said, yes, I agree. So the report came out before he said something. He was not the first to say it.
Right.
All right? Unlike Tawa. That's why I'm saying, that's why he has the resolve not to even apologize up to now. Because he was genuine. And he has said it, let everything be done to him. And that's how the fight is. It's a costly fight. So we have to have a law that protects kind of people. Even in Parliament.
Let me pick your brain on this.
Yes.
I know this conversation is not set for that, but
yes.
I know we've just reviewed or amended the ACC
yes.
Law.
Yes.
But the fact that you still have the power to prosecute, I mean, solely with the discretion of the commissioner, which is legal. So the commissioner would, I mean, no, I will not prosecute. What does that speak to in the fight against corruption?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Let me let this out.
Go
I
ahead.
work at the CC.
Go ahead.
They have powerful procedures. In fact, before the opinion reaches the commissioner, it will have gone about 6 stages. All right. So there is an investigative report.
Right.
There is a lawyer that does an opinion, takes to another level. The group of lawyers look at it. They take to the prosecutorial head, looks at it before they go to the commissioner. So there are so many layers. All right. So it may be good. I don't know.
So the commissioner uses his discretion based on the advice.
No. So that discretion is tied. It's tied. Most often, if he's going to deviate on the opinions that come before him, he might run a risk.
Right.
Because these are the guys who understand the issues down there. So when they inform him based on an opinion and then get to him, it may not necessarily be good for him to deviate from them.
Right.
So on this instance, I don't know perhaps what the opinion will have said, all right, by the legal person who did the opinion on the report that came before the office. But what I am saying, at the very least, we should have seen some positive action taken by the ACC, at the very least to go for the people's money.
Let them pay back.
People's money. These are taxpayers' money we are giving to this body. And if it's clear that they did not follow procurement procedure, they did not retire, they did not even do the things that were, settled for the funds, and it was clear oversight was not done, let them at the very least give back monies so that people will know that indeed ACC meant well and he went about. So look at me. I'm not saying prosecution, and I agree with him. To me, that option was dangerous. You know why? You know why? Because these people also are working for the state every day. Laws are being passed. They are enacting. We're under coronavirus. There are many things that are coming into parliament. If you now go to prosecution and then you take all of them to court, you might undermine inadvertently parliamentary work, and that might be
and that's a good precedent for even the Minister of Health at this point in time that is fighting corruption. If he's found wanting and should be charged to court because he is working during this period, he should not be charged to court. Is that it? What are you saying? What's the difference?
These are two different things.
What's the difference?
The Parliament is an organ of government. No, yes, it's different. Parliament is an organ of government. All right?
And the ministry as well is also
it's not
part of the executive.
It's not an organ of government.
Part of the executive, which is an organ of government.
Exactly. No, let's be clear. Let's be clear.
Go ahead.
Parliament has legislative supremacy. And we all know we need laws. Even the Ministry of Health
that does not prohibit them from.
Don't forget that. Don't forget that. Recoveries are part of also steps.
Right.
All right. It's not undermining. All right. Per se, it's an option. To me, that would have been a best option.
A better alternative to what is given.
Yes, to prosecution.
Right.
Because of their everyday work and the importance of the work they do. Even in this coronavirus moment.
Right.
All right. So that is where I find fault with them. And let's be clear. I will recommend going forward that when these kind of things are done, it's not about trying to come up with recommendations that will suit these people. It's to making sure that we have something that we all will now say, this for stop. And the idea of saying it has been happening in the past, to me, it's a fallacious argument. I see that all the time people are making,
so corruption can be inherited.
The past government, look, let's be clear. There has to be a line. If the past government has been corrupt, that does not justify this government to be corrupt. No way. And that's why we all welcome the Commission of Inquiry. So we cannot now settle for a continuity. Let's deal with the issue.
But how can you prevent that? When you inherit corruption and you follow that path, it's a defense.
Yeah, but that's a fallacious defense. That's what I'm saying. Because you cannot cure an illegality with an illegality.
Right.
All right. Somebody must step up and do the right thing.
Let me bring in the defender.
Well, give me whatever description. But so many things have been said.
Quiet.
So many things have been said.
Right.
And I will still anchor on the point, as we are all saying, that the issue of parliament is systemic, has been. And so the ACC believes it is not a justification, as you say, because it has been done, but I think, as they will say, for heaven's sake, let us, at this point in time, draw the line. And this, again, came in as a result of what Tower did.
Right.
On the discussion on the radio and whatever they had with Param. So it gave ACC the opportunity, because you see the level at which people have been looking at Parliament as if Parliament were above the law. So a lot of things have been happening, and they don't really care as to what to do about it.
Right.
So somebody will go and say, Parliament is this, Parliament is that, but then who has the gumption to go in and do these kinds of things? So I want to believe, as my brother said here, we have to commend the ACC because of the bold steps it has taken, and also the findings of the report, or the investigation report, came clearly identifying those accountability gaps that we needed to address. And that is the way we are definitely going to go. My brother was also asking, but it's
about the
good.
specifics.
Yes, it's good
as to
that
how you're going to
it's
intervene.
good Rashid is here as well. He has worked at the ACC. And I would not assure my brother that we are going to have a press conference to explain to the public what processes does the systems review take. But let me tell you this. We have to understand that prevention, of course, which systems review is a part of, is another very important component or approach to the fight against corruption. The emphasis we keep making on arrest or prosecution, confrontation is good, but prevention is very good. And that is where we go into MDAs. You look at MDAs, or what my brother called public body, institutions that are of government. And you have to look at their practices, procedures, and processes. Because those processes will lead to corruption or create opportunities for corruption. As for instance, this one we are seeing clearly in Parliament.
Right.
People taking money and they don't retire. What is there really to make sure that they retire? Maybe if you don't retire, the other one is not given. So what ACC is trying to do is to go and work with Parliament. We are not micromanaging them. We look at every existing law, even that guides Parliament, and then the other laws that are in this country, and ask, but this is how you are doing it. And we believe it is not the way we should go. So that is what a systems review does. We go and identify the vulnerabilities, the opportunities that exist within a particular institution that give room for corruption to happen, and then come with recommendations. And those recommendations would be there to address those problems we have identified that are the opportunities. So that is how we do it. So our team of officers will definitely have to be working with Parliament.
Are they going to be stationed in Parliament?
Not necessarily, but they will go there on a daily basis, because first of all, they are going to have a plan of action. A plan of action is being developed as to the different aspects they are going to
Do they have to go into the books of Parliament? Into the the way they operate
No,
their
that is
finances
what I am
and all
saying.
of that.
You ask different heads. You ask people who have responsibilities in Parliament. What is it? For instance, you are going to look at the financial issues. Issues around the very interest we are talking about. Issues around procurement, though they are laws. But let you try to understand how they are doing it in practice.
Right.
It is not just rely on what the law says, and you guide them through. So we are going to look at several issues in regard the general operations of Parliament, particularly the one that has to do with finances.
Right.
That is how we are going to do, and we come up with recommendations. And within the prevention department, we have a monitoring and compliance unit. So when you have systems review conducted on an MDA, or in this case, for instance, Parliament, we are going to give them 3 months to implement the recommendations. And after 3 months, we go in and monitor compliance. If they are not compliant, because as I'm saying, the books will be there. You have to make sure you tick everything in terms of the recommendations. This one we ask that should be in place. There are even times we will suggest having structures that we believe are not existing. We may even suggest removing other layers that we believe serve as a kind of opportunity for corruption to happen. All of those things.
I'm curious. Doing your investigation, Patrick Sandy. Yes, I know. Just quickly, I'm just curious. This is a yes or no. I mean, if you so choose. During your investigation, were there internal auditors, and did you speak to them in Parliament?
No, basically, when investigators, I do not
Okay.
know that for certain
Right.
because I'm not an investigator.
Right.
But what I know is when people are investigating, they will make sure that they ask or talk to relevant
Right.
people. And auditors are usually also very important people to talk to when you are conducting your investigations, because they are also an accountability entity.
Right.
So when the monitoring and compliance goes, for instance, and if they identify that there are no compliance, the ACC has also the mandate under the Act to invoke non-compliance sanctions.
And what can they be?
Well, non-compliance sanctions could mean, one, people are reprimanded, but again, if it is so serious, we can even make sure by going to court that the leadership loses his or her position, no matter whether you are elected. Yes, that is what is stated in the non-compliance sanctions. It will be invoked because the responsibility now will rest to the leadership of the institution to make sure that those recommendations are implemented. That is what the non-compliance sanctions. And again, we have the policy and ethics unit within the ACC. Yes, Parliament make laws, they have the expertise, but we again come to support them in making sure that there are certain policies that guides certain things.
Parliament has ethics committee.
No, that is what it's about, their own conduct. But for instance, if you talk about policy and ethics, about even reviewing, looking at the way things are happening,
Right.
Especially no, we are not talking about policy and
That is
ethics
to investigate members of Parliament.
Yeah, no, that is we are talking about the policy issues in Parliament that we believe are not quite good enough to enhance accountability and transparency.
Right.
That is what we are looking for, and we will suggest, we'll work with them to see that those things are enhanced, those things are being developed if they are non-existent. So that is what prevention generally does, and that is the way we have to go on this. So my brother particularly is interested. He's saying this for the second time to my hearing, but I will make sure that I keep him. No, yes, about the specifics and the kind of step-by-step approach that the ACC would have to use in doing its prevention work on Parliament. So that is very good. Then let me also make something clear here. Rashid also spoke about it, but I need to emphasize. When this aspect of prosecutorial discretion, people there may think that it is just about you standing here to say, no, you go this way, you go that way. That's not how it operates at the ACC. And of course, we know the responsibility given to the commissioner is quite huge, and he's fully aware about it, that he has to exercise it in the interest of the people of this country. So therefore, before those things get to his desk, the processes are there. But he has to make a determination as to what we do, and that is the discretion. It is not about any other thing. To say because, for instance, you see an evidence in a matter to go to court, and you say, no, it's my discretion, so I'm not going to court. No, that is not. Besides, cases can even be reviewed. Matters can be reviewed, and another direction provided as to which way you go. And there are times the legal opinion is given not only by one person. The commissioner will give a prosecutor, you do your legal opinion on that matter, he will give another prosecutor, not even knowing that yes, and he gets the diverse opinions on a matter, and now decides when it is taken to the director of prosecutions and comes to him, and then he decides which way to go. So let us understand this, so that the public will not think, as it is often used, policeman, in the case of a policeman, policeman get discretion.
Let me get the power.
Yeah, I go hold, yes. You go hold you no more and say no, even when you know that there's outright violation of the law. That is not what is happening here.
Right.
Then the issue Honorable Tawa spoke about in regard the monies expended to Parliament. That is very critical. But I want to start by saying, when he said the misleading investigation by the ACC, I take great exception to that. Our investigation is not misleading. I hold on that grounds firmly.
Right.
But on the aspect of the funds which the Ministry of Finance, because when you are conducting an investigation, let us bear in mind, if you are going to go to court, it is not merely quoting the law from books. You have to also talk to people, and those are the people you need in evidence. So, for instance, Ministry of Finance, they are the body that allocates the funds. And they told us, we did not give these funds to say it is for oversight. It is, of course, yes, in the parliament spreadsheet or whatever he's reading. But if, for instance, something is captured in the spreadsheet and money is provided to the institution, and that activity does not take place, is it the situation that you retire or refund that funds? No. What then happened in terms of the general use of the funds is what should be an issue. I don't know if I'm coming through.
Go ahead, I'm getting
For instance, at the public, let's just say this, at the ACC, for instance, if I am giving, if funds are provided for outreach.
Right.
No, well, no, listen, maybe let me make this
Let him land. Go ahead.
No, I am not saying the funds should be misappropriated, but I'm saying if it is not put into that use, if it is put into another use, there is nothing wrong. Once a determination has been made as to what happens to it, because he keeps emphasizing on it.
Is that not tantamount to misappropriation?
It
If
is
this if money is given for this water and that money is taken and I got a phone, for example, is that not misappropriation?
No, that in this context, it is within the parliament, the work of parliament. I am not saying this.
Go ahead.
They give me funds to do community outreach. This is just what I'm saying within the budget.
Go ahead.
Within the budget. And in the course of the implementation, we had Corona, and there are restrictions on meetings.
Right.
I could not use that money to do outreach. Do I have to give it back? No, I would have to use it on some other work of the department, which is as well sensitization. It is not misappropriation.
Right.
That is what do you say not
There is what is called the Appropriation Act.
No, to say it's not appropriated for. If I use it on more radio and television programs, rather than because at that time I do not have to get contact with human beings. You cannot say it is.
Are you making a defense for them?
No, sorry, you are saying something.
But we have
You are
to
saying two
understand-
different
I'll come back to
things.
Sean. Let him land.
Let us
Go
understand
ahead.
it.
Let him land.
It
Let
is
him land.
when we look at situations from a management point of view and we relate it as if it were corruption. That is the point I'm making.
Right.
And Ministry of Finance, as I said, initially had indicated clearly
No specific money was
exactly
given
they
for
give
that.
lump sums. But he's making a point that they have their spreadsheet. And NCC, we are not too mindful.
the
But the fact of
activities.
the matter is the money is provided by Ministry of Finance to Parliament. Parliament, as we have said, the administration were able to make the retirements.
So
no oversight
would I be
was
safe
done.
to
Let us
say the
clear.
leadership of parliament is where the corruption is? Because, if the leaders were not signing in for impressed, they have their boys, their peers, according to your findings, go collect. Is that a way of me dodging not to give account for what is mine? According to...
It's a systemic issue. It's a systemic issue.
All right.
We have made it clear in our report.
Yes.
You understand? We have made it clear.
Yes.
Then maybe lastly,
Yes.
My brother also said it in the aspect of whistleblowers and things like that. He's talking about separate legislation
Right.
on whistleblower. That is fine. We have also some aspects of protection
Right.
within the Act that talks about protection of informants and even witnesses.
Right.
So, but on this aspect,
The whistleblower became a suspect.
no, because something else was
Right.
was said against
A
him as well.
counter-allegation.
And that's the point we have made.
Okay.
And equally on the aspect of Gevao. Gevao went to the ACC and said nothing. So how could you treat that person as a whistleblower?
Right.
And a whistleblower, honestly speaking, that's what the man did not tell us what he meant that parliament is corrupt. What is the instance?
Go ahead.
But I told you.
So, wait a minute. So, what we are saying in this case, when you are blowing the whistle, you should give information that is of substance. It is of substance. You cannot just come and then say something in the air and you want ACC to become the magicians.
But that information of Gevao saying parliament is corrupt, that with this finding, with the findings now you've given us as a commission, is that not a way of vindicating Honorable Gevao? That even the House say, yeah, we know something happen, but they work now for fixing.
No.
So it was correct.
No, what I am saying, he was correct, but cannot provide us the basis.
Right. Actually,
the issue is not, well, we are saying corruption, but to us, we
it's
believe
not corruption.
No serious accountability issues. And of course, there are opportunities. We know that for sure.
Fix them, all
We
right.
know opportunities of corruption.
Okay.
Opportunities of
Yes.
corruption.
Yeah,
So I'll just take it from where
He made some statement that we are not a little bit clear with for me. So, having served in a corruption institution, if funds were given for a particular purpose,
Right.
and then some circumventing issue came up, and you want to now divert the fund for another purpose, I think what you do in the prudent circumstance is to revert back, perhaps, and seek approval for that to happen. So if I were investigating, I will ask, so when this happened, did you get back to Ministry of Finance to get approval, perhaps, for diversion? If the answer is no, then automatically misappropriation comes in. So in most circumstances, it's not that the monies were not really expended within the MD.
Right.
So having served as
But not for the intended purpose.
Yes. So when we notice that, so we raise a red flag, perhaps to look for reasons, perhaps to, it's like an opportunity for corruption. That you are neglecting the purpose, there is a presumption of corruption at that stage. Without approval for the diversion from the parent source.
Right.
So I must assume. So let's be clear. And it is so incongruent because Parliament, in that report, I saw it, it's clear that procurement procedures were not followed. All right? And that led to loss of plenty money. So going forward, I think we have made our point. We are not in any way denting ACC per se. We love the institution. We know this might be a lesson learned. All right, but going forward, I think we should treat such investigation with a much more punitive way, so that we send the signal.
Right.
All right, that was mistake.
Just before quickly I come to you, I just again want to bring. I mean, this issue just it's just coming in. The issue of the NACOVAC, for example, the laptops. Those guys procured for something that I mean they did not buy. The SEC picked that up, and of course the SEC asked them pay back our money. And in fact, the computers, they will still belong to the state, but you have to pay back because you said you were going to buy Sierra Water. You went and bought a Grafton.
And they were very high in even specifications.
So,
that was
what and in this case, these guys that we are giving money for, and they did not do it. I mean, according to the findings. So why not ask them to bring back our money?
No, but listen, are we specific on the procurement issue?
No, just generally, oversight.
Oversight? No, but the oversight I am still saying, probably we get it into context better. It is Parliament, I want to believe, because the Ministry of Finance said to us that they give bulk or lump sums to Parliament without the lines
without specifics.
Exactly.
Okay.
That came out in our report. But now I am not privy to it.
Right.
Honorable Tower is saying here that it is Parliament that develops something and submits.
Okay.
So that is internal. So that is the point I was making.
Right.
Because even as a commission, we send a budget. But if the budget comes as a department, you again sit down and develop activities and cost them. So that is again the point I am trying to make in regard what my brother is saying. In that situation, you may not need to get back to finance because finance have just said, we are giving you this amount.
Do what you want for do.
But you have to refer to management. That is why normally you even go for management meetings and do what we call realignment of funds.
Right.
So once, for instance,
So
the
that
leadership of the
speaks to the
institution.
approval Rashid was talking to.
That is it, but not necessarily now in this case,
Yes,
like
but you
Ministry
have
of
to go to
Finance.
the
But yes, you have to
administration
seek
of
some form of approval internally.
Right.
That's how.
Honorable Mtawakonte, you've listened to the ACC and they've made a very good point, a very good submission, and you should be okay by now. With
They've made a very bad case. In fact, Mr. Sandi has just concluded in accounting the very bad case that the ACC has made on the issue of parliamentary oversight. He's saying that Samuel is working for me. Samuel has brought in an estimate, and in that estimate, he has put in clear lines that nail 300,000, cement 700,000, iron rods 5 million, quarter rod 2 million, and Mr. Sandi decides as the owner of this work, instead of me giving Samuel the money to go and buy nail, and he comes in tomorrow, I give him the money to go and buy sand, and he comes in next tomorrow, I give him the money to go and buy cement. Let me do a tabulation, a summation of all what Samuel has said. and I will give Samuel that money. It is now incumbent on Samuel to go by his bill of quantity that he has submitted to Mr. Sandy, fulfilling all those lines, 500 bags cement, 200 bags, 2 cartoon nails. That is how the estimate is. Why am I saying this? Because I want the ordinary man at home to understand how the estimate is. Like he said, even the ACC, when they are doing their budget presentation, they would have to consult themselves internally. Every department will submit their departmental activity. That departmental activity, for example, outreach, it would have a line for newspaper publication. It would have a line for radio jingles. It would have a line for
TV talk shows.
TV talk show. He would have a line for how is it called? State hall or state whatever.
Town hall meetings.
Town hall meetings. Yeah, in all of those lines, the totality of all of those lines would come up to what would be allocated to outreach. Yeah. 300 million. So in the final analysis, the final estimate that comes out, it's a negotiation between the vote control and the Ministry of Finance. And that which comes out is what Ministry of Finance will allocate. And now ACC is saying that yes, they have confirmed that these monies were given to Parliament in full. But however, like I said in the earlier examples, the nail and whatever, and Mr. Sandy decides to give Samuel the full amount. Mr. Sandy has given Samuel the full amount, but Samuel has decided that I will not buy cement, because the money given to me was given to me in bulk, so I choose not to buy cement. That is exactly what has happened. The Ministry of Finance is saying that yes, we have disbursed the full amount to Parliament as per their activity, and in that activity it includes general administrative expenses. It includes budget reallocation to parliamentary female caucus. It includes facilitation to international conferences and whatever statutory travels. It includes support to the office of the Speaker and Deputy Speaker. It includes parliamentary oversight. It includes taking parliaments to the people. So you are saying that as a parliament, yeah, every one of us, the lawyer, the accountant, must have gone through a secondary school. And in that secondary school, you must have been taught economics. And in economics, you must have been taught a scale of preference. And in that scale of preference, what you do first is the things that are more pressing. And in parliamentary activity, if you look at the parliamentary estimates, the most important activity is oversight. So if you are saying that, okay, I would be money that is given to us as parliament in full, I would prefer give money to parliamentary female caucus and deprive the people of Sierra Leone of the most important function that parliament should perform, that is oversight. They will not go on oversight, but I will give money to Mr. Rashid Doumbia to travel to Qatar. I will give money to Mr. Sandy to go and settle. And let's not forget, we are talking about parliament. The laws are clear. There is process for virement. If you are vying money within the expenditure head, it has to, even if you are reallocating within the subhead, it has to be within that same subhead. For example, if I want to take money from taking parliament to the people, which is an oversight function, but I want to reallocate that money to general oversight now, considering that more committees, I want more committees to go on oversight, I can write to the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance will approve with an attachment that money is meant for taking parliament to the people under the same subhead oversight. I am going to put it now to parliamentary oversight activities for committees. The Ministry of Finance will approve. So if all of those were not followed, the monies were not returned, are we saying that the Ministry of Finance, in that statement, they have subtly aided and abetted the process of corruption in Parliament? Right. And let me end with this. Quickly. That in the 2019 statement, that was the most ironical, and that was the best thing that ACC did in that report. They said Parliament was given 27 billion, and the budget for Parliament for 2019 was 24 billion. Why the 3 billion excess? So for me, I'm saying I am not contending all of this. These were not part of it. I submitted everything that they investigated, yes, but my contention was oversight is critical to the function of Parliament. And if oversight were not done and monies were given to Parliament for that, I think somebody should account for it. And the law is clear. The law says, in as much as you're saying leadership, it is not leadership that the law says. Right. The law says under the principles of responsible financial management, yeah, under Section 20 of the Public Financial Management Act, it says the vote controller must ensure efficient, and in this effective, case, the clerk, transparent use of public funds. And it is the vote controller that has principal responsibility under Section 15 of the Public Financial Management Act and Regulation 13 of the. So we are saying somebody must be held responsible as per law for these monies. It is that person that will come now to the ACC and say, okay, I gave that money to Mr. Rashid, he did not retire. Mr. Rashid, come and retire this money. Where is the receipt? That is the way to go.
All right.
I am not saying ACC should charge at all costs, but I'm saying Parliament and the people of Sierra Leone were deprived in 2018 and 2019 for monies that were disbursed under the consolidated fund for oversight, for no oversight done, and the monies were not refunded to the consolidated fund.
And you thought like put in you feel saying a chop and chopper?
In me thought, if I give money for go buy water, you knock out the water, you knock out the money, what is wrong with the money?
Melvin, quickly on the submission of ACC.
Asking where is the money, and the ACC has not explained where is the money as we speak. But in Korea, I would say this is a case of John Pamantu and John West. The MPs were not able to go on oversight. Honorable Tawa was vexed, and the issues were exposed. So basically, I mean, but let's go to this issue of oversight. It's very, very critical,
right?
Because it's the duty of Parliament to hold other arms of government accountable. But we're having a critical situation here, where in the Parliament itself cannot perform oversight on itself. So that's why I've been saying two committees in Parliament that needs to be beefed up. One is the PAC, another one is the Privileges and Ethics Committee. The transparency, of course, that is the bottom line. But I mean, the committee that has to do with privileges and ethics. I mean, for God's sake, if ACC cannot do anything about this issue, but that committee should be able to look and come out with some systems review, examine the situation itself. The ACC, they've done their bit. Again, I see the ACC taking a lot of credit these days. Some of some of these issues raised are not new issues.
Right.
In fact, what is scary for me is the ACC contradicting the audit service. If you look at one of the findings of the ACC in this very report, it's saying on air tickets air tickets that the findings of the Auditor General are almost not true, because they are saying that the Carl's Travel Agency provided receipts, while the Auditor General was saying in a report that they were not made available upon the time of auditing. So there is this scary aspect of ACC contradicting the audit service Sierra Leone, and both of these institutions are supposed to be champions in the fight for accountability and transparency. Moving forward, I think Parliament itself has got a lot to do, but like the ACC are saying, at least it gives some respite that they are coming up with some initiatives. The specifics they should be providing, and the political willingness should be the penultimate. The willingness to accept the recommendations. What if the ACC come up with good recommendation and they are not adhered to, or compliance is not reached? So for me, it's a start. It's a step in the right direction.
Let's just quickly in 5 minutes bring in our viewers into the conversation. So the number to call and be part of the conversation is +232 30121 +232 30121 Famous DBO is saying, good evening, AY. If you're not able to account, continue your fight against corruption in the House of Parliament. We, the people of Sierra Leone, are strongly behind you, sir. This is good for democracy when you see ruling party member of Parliament opposing another government institution. Fuad Sharif is saying the number is +232 30121 619 +232. Interesting. The calls have started coming in, and let's see what's. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Go ahead. Your name and where you're calling us from?
This is Samanga from Kenema City.
Go ahead.
Of course, I appreciate and the conversation is seriously admirable. Mr. Tawa, honorable, of course. I appreciate your efforts all this while. I think you are following what His Excellency the President, Julius Madabio, said about fighting corruption, and that's what we mean about the new direction. So just keep it up, continue. And I also support the view that the Anti-Corruption Commission is not protecting people who are prosecuting corruption. I have numerous examples for that, but I can't go further in this particular case. I just admit to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to take 5 calls because of time. We're only going to accommodate 5 more calls into the conversation, and the number is +232 30121 619. Good evening, AYV and Sunday.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm okay. Your name and where you're calling us from?
I'm Metex. I'm calling from Freetown.
Go ahead.
Please, let Mr. Tawa bear in mind that Parliament regulates itself. And the Parliament has already regulated the report of the ACC. So we bother in this matter, Mr. Tawa, how we find a way how this Parliament will be accountable to the people. And Mr. Prezo, you need to step up. If you don't step up, Salon Parliament, what will you say? It is a born corrupt system.
All
We
right.
need to change the system. We must start somewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Go ahead. Your name and where you calling us from?
I want Mr. Sandy to answer me this question, please.
Go ahead.
What is the meaning of ACC?
Anti-Corruption Commission.
Okay. Then if somebody points out corruption, don't see corruption in all institution. What is the ACC role? Now for be behind that person there, for root out the corruption or not for protect the people who are corrupt. Then question number 2. What is the difference between when APC somebody corrupt and SLP somebody corrupt? I'm Mr. Sandy for answer this question.
All right. Thank you very much. He will. Good evening, AYV on Sunday.
Good evening, Samuel Wise Bandura. Good evening to the panelists. This is the voice of Ibrahim Lahai, calling from Wilberforce.
Go ahead, Ibrahim. Ibrahim, go ahead. We're getting you.
Carefully listened to Tawa, Honorable Tawa, and the other panelists. I want to thank them so very much for their eloquent analysis this evening. I have learned a lot. But I want to just, make comments regarding, one or two statements that was, uttered by, Mr. Tawa, Honorable. We want to...
All right. I'm afraid. Good evening. Hello. Hello, caller. Interesting. The calls are so the line is so choked. Good evening.
Good evening.
Please be audible a bit. Your name and where you calling us from.
Good evening, Samuel.
Good evening.
I'm a concerned caller. Sorry, I cannot mention my name.
Go ahead.
The issue of corruption is one we need to look at critically in this country. Parliament itself, has proved to us that they are not representing us here. The parliamentarians who have received monies for oversight, and then they are using it for other funds, and the ACC man is there saying those monies, if those monies are being used for other purposes, it means, those people should not be accountable for that. It is rather unfortunate, to have listened to that as, somebody representing this country, sir. But we need to do a proper review of the constitution of this country, because that is one of the things that is disturbing us.
All right.
I have seen during the former government an ACC commissioner saying the audit report is a mere, in this country we need to settle things out.
Thank you.
It's rather unfortunate to hear that man saying that.
Thank you. Because of time, we cannot accommodate any more calls. So let me just run through a few messages. They have put a knife on the rope that held us together. Now things are falling apart. Tawa stands up for the people and not for the party. As usual, all parliamentarians are fighting for their parties, not for the people. I am very well aware that your party members will want to crucify you, but God will protect you. That from Cisse Alpha. Mesika Dwazaki saying, Honorable Tawa, the clerk of parliament said you are doing all this because of the limited traveling opportunity they are giving you. How true is that information? I'm sure if Tawa was from a different party, the SL people will be lambasting him. Michael Thomas is saying, Masarako Vishini is saying the funniest thing is that APCs will soon be all over the place playing politics over this issue about corruption in parliament, which the previous parliament with APC in majority aided and abetted corruption throughout the 10 years as majority, with no single person coughing out a comment about corruption in parliament. Momo Jonah is saying, Mr. Conte, keep on the good work until we as a nation have a corrupt-free parliament before we can move forward in terms of salvaging the lives of poor Sierra Leoneans. Melvin is a great pundit and he has contributed to educating the public. That's from Cisse Alpha. Honestly, Tawa doesn't need his colleagues to help him with this fight because the people of Sierra Leone are with him, and I believe he is going to be the Sierra Leone Nelson Mandela. Abscams is saying, Leon Kabbalah is saying, a question for Lawyer Dumbuya. What happened to Kamarimba's case? He will respond to that in our subsequent programs. Cherno Ebar is saying, Mr. Sandy, why not ask the current members of Parliament to refund the monies that were not spent for the intended purpose? Secondly, in your report, no one holds the greatest responsibility. Okay. While you guys, Salkaba, I'm sorry, I'm not. That is not too clear. The president believes in the ACC and all those concerned with investigations, so he doesn't need to say anything except otherwise. Agnes Bendu Gombu is saying, and he is saying there is a separation of power, so the president should not involve. If only we have more Tawa contests in Parliament and more so in key executive making positions in Sierra Leone, we would have been in a better position by now since the last change of government. Sadly, there's not much difference between the current and the previous government. Melvin, if you say the new system is representing the old, meaning you are saying SLPP is also corrupt, please put it better. What Joanna is asking. Honorable, please continue to mogolify Sierra Leone. You shall surely get reward from the silent majority. Barry is saying, I'm going to take 3 more messages. We have so many of them. Time will not permit us to go through all. Brahma Conte is saying, how can the fight against corruption be effective when certain individuals are untouchable? Even in Parliament, certain MPs are untouchable, so the fight is a mere pronouncement. Us friend Kamara is saying, performing and the execution of parliamentary fundamental functions can only be achieved in a nation like Sierra Leone, when constitutional values are observed with economic equilibrium, social and political equilibrium is employed in parliamentary processes. However, if burdensome bureaucracy is employed as a tool to reform parliamentary actions, this will lead to a society seen to be suffering from constitutional deficiency syndrome. In political connotations, politicians must act in a constitutional way and act as professionals, causing them to deviate from purpose, which is a constitutional mismatch. Fighting corruption can be dangerous but necessary. Whistleblowers tend to value fairness very highly. As such, they must be protected to some extent from retaliation, such as reprisal and retribution. Sierra Leone should think again. Interesting. Sierra Leone should rise again. And the final message I'll take, can ACC make their way through Parliament? I think the answer is no, because the report that ACC gives out is just an explanation, because the ACC itself knows that there are a lot of irregularities in procurement rules. Ambassador Mike Joseph Kanu is saying, I'm afraid, guys, the messages are so many, I cannot go through all of them. You have to forgive me, but we're in short supply of time. So let me, moving forward, Melvin, what should be done? What would you consider to be the reformatory way forward in getting ACC in its quest to prevent and sanitize the system in Parliament so that the issues of, well, not corruption, serious accountability can be addressed?
Firstly, I think, the Parliament has started on the right footing by having its service charter, but I think it should go past that. We should be having code of conduct for members of Parliament and members of staff of Parliament, clearly setting out and defining roles, responsibilities, and in where there are violations, the penalties. I think that will aid the system moving forward. And also, somebody asked the question whether SLPP is corrupt. Yes, SLPP is corrupt, but guess what? They are exposing it among themselves. And that's why we are having Honorable Tawa here. So that I think moving forward, we need to see that new form of democracy wherein people within institutions can challenge them, and without fear of backlash. And I will tell you, the ACC has got to do much with regards to protecting whistleblowers. The latest Afro Barometer, it's ranking Sierra Leone 62, alongside Ghana.
Right.
We are in a country, I mean, it's not too bad, but we can improve on that because if 62% of the population are saying that they all no fear for reporting, it means that more people have got the gumption to come out. We need that space.
Right.
Civic space, the media space, and we must be informed. But
Thank
above
you.
all, the laws must be looked at carefully. Somebody spoke about Parliament regulate itself. This has become, I mean, a misinterpreted. I mean, the Constitution, if you permit me, Section 94 is very clear. Subject to the provisions of this Constitution. So it means the drafters of the Constitutions envisage a situation where there will be a powerful Parliament someday. But that Parliament should never be powerful above the Constitution.
Right.
So Parliament can never regulate itself outside of the Constitution. So let them, and besides, that has got only restraints on committees. The committees must be improved. And again, the executive arm of government must not turn a blind eye on the administration. One way of them doing so, if you look at the budget line for Parliament, you cannot expect the best from your parliamentarians when they don't get it. Although, yes, the counter-argument remains, if they cannot handle the little they're having, what are the assurances that they will handle the much that they are craving
Thank
for?
you.
So
Thank you, Melvin. Honorable Tawa.
We must all put hands on that.
Mine is very simple. Somebody said I was accused by the clerk that I am being bitter because I'm not traveling, or
yes, you have limited traveling opportunities.
If I had needed extra opportunities in Parliament, I'm sure the best opportunity that has ever presented itself, or that will present itself to any parliamentarian in this 5th Parliament or in any other Parliament before the 5th Parliament, is for a new member of Parliament like me, having demonstrated enough proficiency, to be given the second biggest committee, maybe in here, the second biggest committee in Parliament, transparency and accountability. It has never been given to any first-timer. I am the first person that has ever been given that committee. Had I wanted the other benefits of that committee, I would have stayed, regardless of what happened. But I stood for values, and I believe in those values. For me, traveling, I do travel because I have no option. But the minute I step my feet on that plane, I find ways to sleep because I am afraid. I'm afraid, definitely I'm afraid.
All right.
So I cannot be bitter for traveling because I have traveled before. This is not my first job. I have worked for Skybank, I have worked for EcoBank, I have traveled in EcoBank like any other person in this world. So I think
that's a good way of me telling you that you should be receiving an invoice for adverting on my show, those banks.
Thank you.
Rashid.
Yes, a couple of things. And by way of my last statement. First, again, the ACC, we love you, you are doing well, but we want to see you get better. That's why I'm on board to work with you, but sometimes I also come and draw you a little when I see that things are not going on well. So I mean well, it's out of love and the betterment of the institution. Work on selective justice. People are raising that so much on the ACC. When a government official in this government messes up, deal with them, as you are dealing also with the past government.
Right.
We want to see that balance. Then secondly, we have been eligible for the compact. We are still waiting for that money. We should not mess up now.
Okay.
People are looking, so sustain the fight, all right? And then lastly, let me make this point very clear. I see the issue of what the general report came up in our debate. Section 119, I think it's 5, says Parliament shall debate the report. So when 4 says the general shall submit the report to Parliament, and then Parliament shall debate the report, and then appoint, where necessary in public interest, a committee to deal with any matters arising thereon. So actually, the procedure should have been Parliament debated the report, and then if there are issues that come up, they send to the PAC to now look at it. So I am confused. I'm confused that I'm now seeing a lot of work done by the PAC without the report being tabled for debate in Parliament.
That has been the illegitimate process that the PAC has adopted.
In a way, all of this are undermining transparency and accountability.
Right.
The law is clear. So let Parliament debate the General's report. Please.
Your final submission?
Yes,
gentlemen. Go ahead.
Let me thank colleagues in the studio for such a very useful discussion, a conversation around corruption. I want to believe that we are making progress as a country, especially when we discuss issues of this magnitude. And I had indicated it, Parliament being an organ of government, but has always been a place where a lot of people think that probably I would say it's a no-go area, especially when it comes to like holding them accountable. And we are seeing these things coming up. Just by way of responding to some of the issues raised,
You have, you have a minute to do so.
ACC, okay. Well, before I just go, let me respond. Before I go to the issue I wanted to, let me respond to what my brother Rashid said. Yes, as ACC, we welcome, honestly, constructive views in regard bettering the work we do.
Right.
And we have been listening to people. We are taking their issues on board or their suggestions.
Right.
But then what we have also realized in the recent is that some sections of the public want to use the ACC to their own whims and caprices, and we will not do that. We always try to maintain a fine balance. We are in a highly toxic political environment,
right.
And we are mindful of it, and we make sure that we remain professional.
Right.
And then also, finally, maybe, the aspect of selective justice. We are not being selective. We have had people also in this current administration that we have investigated, and some we have also charged to court. You see? So let people hold that view. We are currently investigating EDSA. We are doing the current SLMA executive director, even the one that he succeeded, and we did the same for...
They're investigating.
For
let him land.
For Sarah Bendu when she was there,
Yeah.
and then now she's standing trial for her activities at SLRSA. We have done investigations on the Sierra Leone Civil Aviation Authorities, this current administration.
Right.
Those that had to do with the commissions of inquiry, they are now in mandatory
Thank you.
custody. All these things are coming up.
Thank you.
You
Thank
understand?
you.
No, the young man have told you, it's ongoing.
As we conclude, let me just take this message from Honorable Dr. Bernadette Lai. She's saying, good evening. I am listening to this very interesting debate about Parliament and the ACC report. But the network is so bad where I am. I want to refer to section 229, subsection 4 and 5 on the submission of the Auditor General's report to Parliament, and Parliament where it says, Parliament shall debate the report of the AG and appoint where necessary in the public's interest, a committee to deal with any matters arising thereof. The standing order, section 76, subsection 6, establishes the Public Account Committee to examine the annual accounts showing the appropriation of the sums granted by the House to meet public expenditure, together with the reports and special reports of the Auditor General thereon. The Constitution is the supreme law of the country, and it's very clear that Parliament and not a subcommittee shall debate the AG report. Being very curious, I had asked MPs before 1996 Parliament about their views about this and how they went about the AG report. I was told by an MP in the 1996 Parliament and another MP in the Parliament before 1996 that the practice was that they debated the report in line with 119 and subsection 5, and then sent it to the PSC for further scrutiny. Why? So the question is, when and why was this provision altered? I was told that before the AG report was lean, few pages, and not cumbersome to read, the debate focused on the importance of the report, on the importance of the report and merit and demerit, and left the details to the PSC to deal with. But with more and international practices and complexities, we now today have voluminous AG reports and special reports. So it was thought expedient to then send it to the PSC to investigate and set up hearings from across the country and sectors, after which they reported to Parliament in the form that could now be debated. I was prompted to do this inquiry when Honorable Tawa moved the motion for the AG report to be debated before committal to the PSC and not the other way around, as has been the case. As to the assertion that the mess in the 5th Parliament is an inherited one, all I will say is that sometimes let sleeping dog lie. Interesting. All right, that's all we have time for in tonight's program. Many thanks to our panelists for giving us their time, and to our lovely audience. A repeat of this program comes up on Thursday, 4 p.m. Thank you for staying with us and participating in the program. Be sure to catch a fresh edition of the show here, same time, on your home of all things credible, factual, and all times balanced news, AYV. Coming up after this is the AYV Primetime News. The show has been AYV on Sunday. My name is Samuel Weisberger. Say many thanks for listening and be part of the show. Take care of yourself.